What a headshot! What a head!
How's it, guys? This is Dayvy, FPL, and welcome back to the Fantasy Premier League video here on my channel. Now in this video, I'm going to take you guys through a Bruno draft, or in other words, a no Bruno Fernandes draft, because I know there's been some people that have been requesting it. So personally, I just wanted to get this out there that I personally don't think that you guys should be going without Bruno Fernandes in game week 1. But just because I don't think that specific way in FPL doesn't mean that we can't have the conversation. So what I'm going to show you in this video is the other side of the story, the stats that say you shouldn't go for a Bruno Fernandes in your game week 1 side. And maybe it can cause a little bit of a debate down in the comments below. That's what I want you guys to do, is put hashtag Team Bruno or hashtag Team Bruno down in the comments below, depending on which side of the story you guys are on. But if you're still interested in the video, sit back, relax, and let's get straight into it. So the first talking point I just wanted to cover, I've taken this kind of talking point straight from that valuation video we did at the start of the preseason, and I wanted to touch on a very specific talking point that I did mention in that video, and that's basically to do with your premium assets. So what I want you guys to do is don't look at the left hand kind of graph, look at the right hand graphic, and that's going to basically be the amount of points these players got for their price point. And the talking point I want to touch on is captaincy. So captaincy is going to be the root cause of what a lot of people have been saying about Bruno Fernandes and the reason why they don't want to own him. We'll go into the specifics of the game weeks a little bit later on, but what I wanted to talk to you guys about was the whole value debate. So you can see there, I've ranged kind of the midfielders in terms of their value. At the top we have Harrison, but the two players I want you guys to focus on are going to be Fernandes and then Salah. If you need a little bit of help, they're basically in the middle of the pack there, a little bit of like a turquoise color, but the reason I want to focus on captaincy is when you consider the formula that I used, which was points divided by price. Just think about captaincy in that regard. Let's just say you captain Mo Salah every single game week of last season. That will obviously have doubled his points, which would have made him double as valuable. And when you look there, about 19, 18, Bruno Fernandes about the 21 mark. Just double that, that's going to be about 42. And just look at the axes that you guys can see there. The maximum is about 27 for Harrison. So imagine what 42 would look like on this graphic. Absolutely splendid value, to be honest. And that's where these premium assets really carry their weight in gold. It's all about the captaincy decisions. But then if you don't captain a Mo Salah or Bruno Fernandes, you can see that there's actually players that are outperforming him in terms of the value kind of debate. So this is the talking point, and hopefully I've communicated it well. I personally think that that was probably the best video that I've ever created. So hopefully bringing this talking point back into the new video will make it even better. Just drop down in the comments below if you guys don't understand what I was kind of saying in this talking point, and I'll be happy to explain it to you guys. Or if you want to go a little bit more in depth, drop your thoughts down in the comments below and we can take the debate a little bit further. But now talking about the captaincy, I mentioned that we're going to be looking at the game weeks, and that's exactly what we're going to be doing here. And what I wanted to do was open up the floor to the first 5 game weeks, and let's actually look to see when we would actually captain Bruno in the opening 5. I also just want to say that when I was organizing the fixtures for Man United, they actually have quite bad fixtures for the opening 13. I think the opening 3, 4, those look pretty good, but from then on, the fixtures don't look great at all, and I definitely think that I might be kind of reconsidering when I do look at those fixtures, because as you guys know, I'm a very fixture FPL manager, and that's kind of how I play the game. So when I see bad fixtures, I instantly don't really want to own a Bruno Fernandes, but I would definitely look at the fixtures when you're considering who to captain in every single game week. So what I did with those opening 5 fixtures was I then selected the teams that have a relatively good fixture, and maybe you would be considering to captain them over your Man United asset. So game week 1, we have United facing Leeds. I don't think I'll be touching a United player as a captain in game week 1, and I definitely think most of us will be going for Mo Salah against Norwich. In game week 2, when Man United go away to Southampton, Man City have Norwich at home, which is probably the best fixture to have in the Premier League this season. In game week 3, they host Wolves, and this is where we kind of get into a little bit of a discrepancy. I personally think that Wolves isn't that bad of a game, but a lot of kind of the fixture tickers like Fantasy Football Fix actually rate this as quite a tough fixture. So maybe I have to kind of reanalyze this and actually see that Wolves could be a little bit stronger defensively than I'm kind of putting them out to be. But I definitely think that in game week 3, the Spurs assets against Watford look like quite a nice option to go for. So we have Spurs for game week 3 and 4. They face Watford and Crystal Palace, whereas in game week 4, United face Newcastle. And I think game week 4 is probably the only game week that I would consider captaining Bruno in these opening 5 fixtures. In game week 5, face West Ham, won't be touching a United option again as a captain. And when you see the other fixtures, you don't even need to captain a United option, because we have City versus Southampton at home, and we have Liverpool against Crystal Palace at home. And you guys can remember that Crystal Palace game, that 7-0 3-0 that Liverpool ended up beating Crystal Palace last season. So I mean, imagine that can be kind of replicated in the 2021/2022 season. I mean, the scores will be absolutely massive. So you can see here, when we consider the captaincy, I would probably only captain Bruno in one game week out of the opening 5. So then the question is it actually worth having him or splitting that budget and getting in some better options? So that's exactly what we're going to be talking about now. I'm going to be splitting that budget and I'm going to be showing you guys some variations that you could actually afford if you wanted to go for it. I've gone for quite a conservative option here. I've gone for Sancho because maybe you still want a little bit of United coverage, but just at a cheaper price. And we don't even know with Sancho. Maybe he actually outperforms Bruno Fernandes this season. Could do, as he is playing at that right wing position, which might be more favorable for kind of attacking returns. But what I did was I combined a similar budget. So I took Bruno Fernandes and Rafinha and then compared them to Sancho and Mahrez. So both of these two options have the exact same price value. And then I also went over to Fantasy Football Fix. I went over to their predicted points tool and I selected the predicted points for the opening 6 game weeks. One comment that came up in a previous video was basically, why are the predicted points so low? And the explanation for this is that most models are a little bit more conservative because they would rather be a little bit more conservative than predicting players to score 10 points, 12 points, and then that doesn't end up happening. So from an accuracy point of view, the model is more accurate when it's more conservative, unfortunately. So you can see Bruno Fernandes, out of these 4 players, expected to score the most points, probably a little bit expected because he's the most expensive, but when you combine him with the Rafinha of 20.1 in the opening 6 game weeks, you can see that those 2 players total 51.9 points. Now you could argue here that if you're going to be captaining Bruno in game week 4, this is going to increase his value, and that's 100% right, but what I wanted to do is just put it on an open playing field here, and we're just going to be going for points per game. Then we compare that to Sancho and Mahrez, and you can see that them two actually end up outperforming them. Now granted, it is only 2 points, so I think from a risk point of view, it might not be worth it, but you can also captain Mahrez against Norwich in game week 2, could captain Sancho against Newcastle, so that could be a situation that you guys do look at. And the opportunities for this are absolutely endless. As I always say with FPL, there's probably an infinite amount of solutions to every single problem, so you could compare Bruno Fernandes and a 4.5 to maybe going for a Robertson and a Mahrez. You could do kind of situations in the forward department, go for a Harry Kane instead. There's a lot of situations to go for, and what I would recommend is kind of nail down the options that you want to go for, and then just do a little bit of analysis on their fixtures and maybe predict your own points if you don't want to use a model like Fantasy Football Fix. So now going on to the drafts, and I've actually made 2 of them for you Bruno gang, so that you guys can kind of look at my formations, look at my options, and then maybe choose the one that you feel is a little bit more fitted to your playstyle. So the first one is definitely going to be more of the conservative option. I've opted for some great options in the midfield, forward, and defense to kind of split the value quite nicely. So starting off in goal, I've gone for Sanchez. So right now we don't exactly know what the injury situation with him is, but I'm pretty sure that come game week 1 we'll get more news, and you can always just switch him around for maybe a Bachmann if he manages to stay at Watford. The next defenders are going to be Luke Shaw, Trent Alexander-Arnold, and then also Ben White. So Ben White comes in here as a little bit of a nice 4.5 option, and I've got some other 4.5s on my bench, so you can kind of rotate them with whoever has the better fixture. Luke Shaw, Trent, those are kind of essential defenders in my opinion. If you guys did watch my essentials video, you would have seen that those 2 players were consistent in that video. So if Luke Shaw's back from that injury, which he's expected to, I think that these 2 options could be quite nice. And you can kind of get a little bit of a United coverage here, maybe from a clean sheet point of view, that maybe he outperforms Bruno Fernandes if Bruno absolutely blanks in the opening 6 game weeks. Going on to the midfield department, and this is where things heat up a little bit, get a little bit more spicy. You now can afford Heung-min Son and Mahrez in that midfield 4. I've gone for a cheap option there with the Saar from Watford just because I really like him at that 6.0 price point. And then Mo Salah there, no brainer. In terms of Mo Salah or Bruno Fernandes, Mo Salah 100% more of the essential pick here. So I wouldn't be doing kind of a maverick move of going for a Mo Salah, whereas the Bruno Fernandes move I can kind of understand if you don't want to go without him. The forward line here is going to be pretty template, and what I try to do is include another United option so that you get a little bit of coverage from an attacking point of view. So I've gone for Cavani here. The only thing about him is that I don't even think he's back training with United. He might be in another country still, so just make sure that he is back in training before you guys do bring him in. But if he's back from that and kind of been training for a couple of days, I'm pretty sure if he's fit, he definitely will start for the majority of games for United, just because I think from a striker point of view, 100% their best striker in that squad. The next 2 options are my 2 essential forwards. It's going to be Antonio and then also Ollie Watkins, just because the fixtures at the start are great, and at that price point you can easily chop and change them and move them to players that are reasonably priced as well in that 7.5 mark. So as I mentioned at the introduction of this team, this is the more conservative approach, but you still have some really nice options here. You've got a Heung-min Son, a Mahrez. We spoke about that Man City game in game week 2 against Norwich, where they're the standout captains to go for. And then obviously Heung-min Son, game week 4, you can captain the South Korean. And with Harry Kane kind of nearing a move away from Spurs, Heung-min Son should probably start at that 9 position. So kind of an out of position, a midfielder there, which is always lovely for us FPL managers. And I reckon that without Harry Kane, we're just going to have to kind of monitor the situation with Son, whether he can actually perform without him in that front line, or if he's actually going to kind of blossom and go into a record-breaking season. On the bench, we've got quite a boring bench here. Ayling's probably the most exciting 4.5 defender in my opinion, so I definitely would have him. Then also gone for Brandon Williams, who's expected to kind of get a loan move away from United, and if he does, there is a potential that he does start. And the final player is going to be Brownhill from Burnley. Super boring option there, but at 4.5, you can't expect much more. But now let's go on and look at a little bit more of an exciting draft. So now going on to the next draft, and we've switched up the formation. We're now going to be going for a 3-5-2, and there have been a couple of changes that I've managed to afford. So initially I wanted to say that there's a 0.0 in the bank here, so nothing in the bank like the last draft, so you can't really upgrade any options, but you can maybe switch a couple of options around. The player that I have actually taken out here is going to be Heung-min Son. So I've gone for Havertz from Chelsea just to kind of mix things up a bit, and I do think in game week 1 against Crystal Palace, Chelsea are going super under the radar. So I have seen a couple of drafts managed to fit in Ben Chilwell from a defensive point of view, but I do think Kai Havertz is going to have a great season. The one thing I will note is that Lukaku is rumored to maybe be moving to Chelsea, and that kind of eliminates Kai Havertz playing at that striker position. So yes, he could actually play out of position, maybe rotating with the Timo Werner, but I think that Havertz this season is going to have a great one, and I can honestly say at 8.5 could be a little bit of a steal. The only thing that's a little bit negative is that obviously Chelsea's fixtures in the opening 6 aren't the best, and they kind of only have a really good game week 1 fixture. So what I would probably do is downgrade another department here, and then maybe keep about 1.5 in the bank so that you can afford Heung-min Son in game week 2, because as you guys know, they do face Man City in game week 1, which is probably the worst fixture to have in the Premier League at the moment. So maybe going without a Heung-min Son game week 1, bringing him in game week 2 for that captaincy in game week 3 and 4 could be a nice strategy to go for. The upgrades that I have done in this team are going to be from a defensive point of view. I've taken out Ben White and I've managed to fit in Robertson. So yes, I've got that double up in the Liverpool defense. A little bit of an interesting option here. I personally have gone away from that double up because there has been rumors that Van Dijk won't start the season. He has been racking up a couple of preseason minutes and the training minutes, so just keep your eyes on that. But what I would kind of say is that I think that he'll be kind of filtered in slowly but surely, as they don't want to kind of push him too hard after coming back from that long-term injury. So we still have the consistency of Sanchez and Luke Shaw, but then kind of accompanying them is going to be Robertson. And at 7 million could be a nice little option, but I do think might be slightly overpriced in my opinion, depending on how many clean sheets Liverpool do rack up. We also have some consistency in the front line. Antonio Watkins, as I mentioned, essential options in my opinion, and I've also kept Mahrez and Sarr as well as Salah in that midfield department. The final player I'm going to be touching on is going to be Greenwood, and yes, at 7.5 million could be a nice little steal at the start of the season, with Rashford having that shoulder surgery about a week ago. So I definitely think that he will miss the start of the Premier League season, and that kind of opens the doors for Greenwood here. Now I do know that Anthony Martial is back in training, so just maybe monitor the situation with those last couple Man United preseason games, because Martial could obviously start on the left, Sancho could start on the right with Cavani up front, or we could maybe see Greenwood kind of rotate with any of those front three for some playing time in the opening games. So that's why Greenwood, as I said, could be an absolute steal, because at 7.5 million, an entry into that United attack with a player that usually puts up some good stats. So you can still have some United coverage here without Bruno Fernandes, with a Cavani or a Greenwood, but I definitely think that I wouldn't be trying to cover Bruno, because you simply just can't cover the Portuguese midfielder. So this is basically a wrap of the video, guys. Hopefully you did enjoy it. Please don't forget to like if you did, and subscribe if you're new or have not subscribed yet. As I mentioned, comment down below if you guys are hashtag Team Bruno or hashtag Team Bruno, and I want to see what the large majority of you guys are thinking for that Game Week 1 team. I'm signing off. It's been Dayvy FPL, and I'm out. Cheers. Bye.